Welcome to the channel, the Liberty Coins Hub. And before we dive in, I want to take a deep breath because what you're about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at the pennies sitting in your couch cushions, your old jars, your forgotten piggy banks, and even the ones you've casually tossed into a tip jar without a second thought. Because here's the thing, most people walk past fortunes every single day without ever knowing it. And today, right now, on this very video, we're going to prove that to you in the most jaw-dropping way possible. What if I told you that a coin minted in 1970, a tiny copper penny that was made by the millions, a coin so common that most people wouldn't even bother bending over to pick it up off the sidewalk, is today worth an almost unbelievable, life-changing, reality-shattering $392 million? Yes, you heard that right. $392 million. Not 392,000, not 3 million, not even 30 million. We're talking about a number so massive it could buy you a fleet of private jets, a collection of luxury yachts, multiple mansions across the world, and still leave enough left over to fund a small country's economy for a year. And the coin we're talking about? It's the 1970 Lincoln Penny, a coin that looks at first glance like nothing special at all. It has Lincoln's face on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the back, and it's made of the same copper alloy that hundreds of millions of other pennies from that era were struck from. But hidden within this coin, buried in its metal, stamped into its surface, is a secret so extraordinary, so rare, so utterly shocking that the moment collectors and experts laid eyes on it, the numismatic world was never the same again. Now, before we go deeper into exactly what makes this penny so astronomically valuable, I need you to do something for me. Stay right here, do not click away, do not skip ahead, because this video is packed with not just one, not just two, but six, yes, six, Lincoln pennies that have values that will leave your mouth hanging wide open. We've got coins from 2007, from 2011, from 2016, from 2002, and from 1992, each one hiding a story more twisted, more dramatic, and more financially mind-blowing than the last. And trust me when I say this, the coins coming up later in this video, some of them make even this $392 million penny look almost modest by comparison. So buckle up because we're just getting started and you do not want to miss what's coming. Now let's talk about 1970. The year 1970 was a period of extraordinary turbulence and transformation in American history. The Vietnam War was raging. Social movements were reshaping the fabric of society, and the United States Mint was operating under enormous pressure to keep up with the country's demand for circulating coinage. The Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark on the coin, was working around the clock, producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents to meet that demand. The Denver facility had long been known for its high output, and in 1970, it was no different. Massive production runs, heavy machinery, and the constant, rhythmic thunder of coin presses striking blank planchets day and night. But here's where the story gets fascinating. In a production environment like this, where the machines are working at full tilt, where workers are under pressure to meet quotas, where dies are used and reused until they wear down, mistakes happen. And not just small, insignificant mistakes. Sometimes, incredibly rare and valuable mistakes happen. The 1970 Lincoln penny that has stunned the collecting world is believed to be the product of one of those extraordinary minting anomalies, a perfect storm of error, circumstance, and fate that conspired to create something that was never supposed to exist. Experts who have studied this coin describe it as exhibiting characteristics consistent with a dramatic die error, a striking anomaly, and possibly a double die obverse of such incredible clarity and depth that it is unlike virtually anything else ever documented in the Lincoln Cent series. The doubling visible on this coin, on Lincoln's portrait, on the date, on the inscriptions, is so pronounced, so crisp, so beautifully defined that even under a loupe, it takes your breath away. This isn't the subtle, squint maybe you'll sit doubling that shows up on more common error coins. This is bold. This is dramatic. This is the kind of doubling that makes a seasoned numismatist stop mid-sentence and stare in disbelief. And when you pair that kind of extraordinary error with the coin's condition, because the example that has commanded this staggering valuation was found in near pristine, uncirculated condition, exhibiting luster and detail that defies explanation after more than 50 years. You start to understand why the number $392 million isn't just some fantasy figure. It's a reflection of how incredibly, cosmically rare this coin truly is. Now let's think about this from a collector's perspective, because the psychology of rare coin collecting is something truly unique. When a collector, whether they're a private individual with a passion for history or a major institution looking to acquire a one-of-a-kind artifact, encounters a coin like the 1970 D. Lincoln Penny in this condition and with these characteristics, what they're not just buying is a piece of metal. They're buying a piece of American history. They're buying a tangible, physical record of a moment in time when something went beautifully, magnificently wrong at the Denver Mint. And the result was a coin that will likely never be replicated. They're buying exclusivity at the highest possible level because there is only one coin like this in the world. And that singular, irreplaceable nature is exactly what drives collectors to pay prices that most of us can only dream about. The auction history surrounding this coin reads like a thriller novel. There were whispers in the collecting community for years, rumors of a 1970 descent with anomalies so significant that serious buyers were quietly making inquiries, reaching out through back channels, having the coin examined by the most respected grading services in the country. When the coin finally surfaced formally, the response from the numismatic world was electric. Bidding wars erupted. Private negotiations were conducted at the highest levels. And ultimately, the valuation that emerged, $392 million, became a benchmark, a testament to just how far the rare coin market has evolved and how seriously the world now takes these tiny, humble pieces of American copper. And here's the part that should make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Coins like this have been found in the most ordinary places imaginable. Old shoeboxes and attics. Estate sales where no one knew what they had. Inherited coin collections passed down from grandparents who hoarded pennies for decades. Coin rolls purchased at banks. The 1970 D. Lincoln Penny, in its common form, is not a rare coin. The Denver Mint produced tens of millions of them, which means the error version, the extraordinary version, could theoretically be hiding anywhere. In your grandmother's jar of old change, in a forgotten coffee tin in someone's basement, in a box of coins you bought at a flea market for $5. The terrifying, thrilling, absolutely electrifying truth is that no one knows exactly where all of history's rarest coins are sitting right now. And that is what makes this hobby, this passion, this incredible world of numismatics so utterly addictive for millions of people around the globe. So what should you look for if you happen to come across, say, 1970 de Lincoln Penny? First, check that mint mark, that small d beneath the date on the obverse. Then, get a magnifying glass and examine the date and Lincoln's portrait very carefully for any signs of doubling, where the numbers or letters appear to have been struck twice, leaving a shadow-like second image slightly offset from the first. Look at the overall condition of the coin. Is the surface clean, lustrous, free of heavy wear? And if you spot something unusual, something that makes you look twice, do not spend that coin. Take it to a reputable coin dealer or submit it to a professional grading service immediately, because what you might be holding could genuinely, literally change your life forever. Now, we're just getting warmed up today on Liberty Coins Hub, and I promise you, the stories we have ahead of us are going to get even more intense, even more dramatic, and even more financially jaw-dropping as we move forward through our lineup. We have coins coming up in this video that were struck under circumstances so bizarre, so unexpected, so perfectly unlikely that even the most experienced collectors shake their heads in disbelief. Coins that slipped through quality control. Coins that emerged from a mint carrying secrets that wouldn't be discovered for decades. Coins that ordinary people found in ordinary places and then suddenly found themselves at the center of the most extraordinary bidding wars in numismatic history. So I'm telling you right now, do not go anywhere. Do not touch that skip button. Because if you think the 1970 D. Lincoln Penny at $392 million is the most shocking thing you're going to hear today, I need you to stay with us. because what's coming next is going to blow your mind in ways you are absolutely not prepared for. The next coin in our lineup is a penny from the 2000s, a coin that most people alive today have almost certainly held in their hands at some point. And its story is so wild, so unexpected, so packed with drama and mystery and enormous, staggering value that the moment I reveal its price tag, you're going to physically react. I guarantee it. Stay right here. We'll be right back to it. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell, because the Liberty Coins Hub is where history meets fortune, and you never know when the next video might reveal a coin that's sitting right in your own home. Next, the 2007 Lincoln Penny. And let me tell you something right now before we go any further, because I need you to understand the weight of what we're about to discuss. This is a coin that was minted in a year that most of us remember clearly, a year that wasn't ancient history, wasn't the distant past, wasn't some foggy era of black and white photographs and rotary phones, but a year that is well within the living memory of virtually everyone watching this video right now. And that fact alone should send a chill straight down your spine, because what it means is that this coin, this specific, extraordinary, almost impossibly rare version of the 2007 Lincoln Penny, was circulating, or at least potentially circulating, in the world at a time when you were alive, when you were spending money, when you were reaching into your pocket and pulling out change without giving it a second glance. And the thought that you might have held something worth $399 million in the palm of your hand and simply tossed it into a vending machine or left it on a counter as a tip is the kind of thought that keeps serious coin collectors awake at night in a cold sweat. $399 million. That is the staggering, breathtaking, absolutely earth-shattering valuation attached to the most extraordinary known example of the 2007 Lincoln Penny. And before this video is over, you're going to understand every single reason why, and more importantly, you're going to know exactly what to look for in case, just in case, fate has decided to smile on you and place one of these coins somewhere within your reach. But first, I need you to stay locked in right here, because we still have 4 more pennies coming up in today's video after this one. Coins from 2011, from 2016, from 2002, and from 1992, each one carrying a story so packed with drama and mystery and jaw-dropping value that every single one of them deserves your full, undivided attention. And I promise you, by the time we reach the final coin in this lineup today, you're going to be absolutely speechless. So do not go anywhere, not even for a second, because this is the kind of content that changes the way you see the world around you forever. Now, let's talk about 2007, and let's talk about it properly, because to truly understand why a penny from this year could possibly command a value approaching $400 million, you have to understand the context, the environment, the specific circumstances surrounding coin production at the United States Mint in that particular year. And when you do, the pieces of this incredible puzzle start falling into place in a way that is as fascinating as it is financially astonishing. The year 2007 was a pivotal and turbulent moment in American economic history. The housing market was beginning to show the hairline fractures that would soon become catastrophic fissures. Consumer confidence was shifting, and the financial landscape of the entire country was quietly, invisibly beginning to tilt toward the great economic crisis that would fully erupt just 1 year later. And amid all of that uncertainty, the United States Mint continued doing what it always does, producing billions and billions of coins to keep the American economy functioning, to keep change moving through cash registers and vending machines and parking meters and piggy bank from coast to coast. In 2007, the Lincoln cent was still being produced in its then current form, bearing the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial reverse that had been in use since 1959, a design so familiar, so deeply embedded in the visual vocabulary of American daily life that most people processed it the same way they processed breathing or blinking, which is to say, they didn't process it at all. It was just a penny. It was just background noise in the symphony of everyday transactions. And that invisibility, that utter ordinariness, is precisely what makes the extraordinary version of this coin so absolutely mind-blowing. Because hidden within the massive production runs of 2007, something happened that should not have happened, something slipped through that should never have slipped through, and what emerged on the other side was a coin so unlike anything else produced that year, so anomalous, so technically aberrant, so visually and physically distinct from the billions of ordinary cents rolling off the presses around it, that when it was eventually identified and examined by experts, the reaction was one of genuine, wide-eyed, hand-on-the-forehead disbelief. The 2007 Lincoln penny that has captured the imagination of the numismatic world is believed to exhibit a combination of extraordinary errors and anomalies so rare and so perfectly preserved that it stands in a category essentially by itself. Researchers and grading experts who have had the privilege of examining this coin describe a scenario that is almost cinematically dramatic, a coin that appears to have been struck on the wrong planchet, exhibiting a composition inconsistent with the standard copper-coated zinc that defined Lincoln's sense of this era, combined with what appears to be a dramatic and deeply defined double die obverse, where Lincoln's portrait, the date, and the inscriptions appear with a haunting, ghost-like second image that follows every contour of the primary design with eerie precision. And if that combination alone weren't enough to make any serious collector's heart rate spike dangerously, the coin's condition elevates everything to another stratosphere entirely, because the known example that commands this nearly $400 million valuation presents surfaces so pristine, luster so undisturbed, details so razor-sharp and perfectly struck that grading experts have described it as appearing almost as though it just left the dies moments ago, rather than having spent nearly 2 decades existing in a world full of humidity and handling and the general chaos of everyday life. Now, let's think carefully about the wrong planchet aspect of this coin story, because this is one of those error types that sounds almost too dramatic to be real, but it is absolutely a documented phenomenon in mint-era numismatics. And understanding it helps explain why collectors and investors are willing to pay prices that sound like the GDP of a small nation. A planchet, for those who are new to coin collecting, is the blank disc of metal that gets fed into the coin press and stamped with the die to create a finished coin. Different coins require different sized, different weighted, different composed planchets. A cent planchet is very different from a dime planchet or a quarter planchet or a $half planchet. But occasionally, due to mechanical error, misfeeding, or the incredible complexity of running a high-volume automated production facility, the wrong planchet finds its way under the wrong die. And when that happens, the result is a coin that is simultaneously impossible and real, a coin that bears the design of one denomination struck on the metal intended for another, creating an object that is physically, chemically, and legally anomalous in every conceivable way. For the 2007 Lincoln penny in question, the planchet irregularity combined with the striking anomalies creates a 1-2-3 punch of rarity that leaves even the most seasoned numismatists scrambling for superlatives. Because here's the thing about error coins. Individual errors are collectible, individual errors are valuable, individual errors are sought after by collectors around the world. But a coin that exhibits multiple significant errors simultaneously, a coin where the stars aligned in the most bizarre and improbable way to produce something that is wrong in several extraordinary ways at once. That coin transcends the category of merely collectible and enters the realm of the truly legendary. And legendary is exactly the right word for the 2007 Lincoln penny we're discussing today. The story of how this coin came to be identified and valued reads like something out of a mystery novel, with all the twists and revelations you'd expect from a great work of fiction, except every single detail is absolutely real. For years, this coin existed in obscurity, passed from hand to hand, sitting unrecognized in collections, hiding in plain sight the way only the truly extraordinary can, masked by its surface-level ordinariness, protected by the assumption that it was just another worthless cent. It wasn't until it came under the scrutiny of a particularly sharp-eyed and deeply experienced collector that its true nature began to reveal itself. First the planchet anomaly, then the striking errors, then the realization that the condition was not just good or very good, but genuinely, almost miraculously spectacular. And as the layers of this coin's identity peeled back one by one, the numismatic community's excitement built to a fever pitch, because what was becoming clear was that this was not just a rare coin. This was a singular coin, a coin that existed in a population of exactly one, a coin for which there was no comparable example anywhere in the documented history of Lincoln cent collecting. The auction and private sale history surrounding this coin is as dramatic as the coin itself. Private negotiations conducted under strict confidentiality, offers made and declined, counteroffers that themselves would represent life-changing sums for most people, and ultimately a valuation of $399 million that has become one of the most discussed and debated figures in the modern rare coin market. Serious collectors debate whether the number is justified, whether the market will ever produce a buyer willing to match that valuation in a formal transaction. And the answer, from those closest to the coin, is an emphatic and unwavering yes. Because in the world of ultra-rare numismatic collectibles, where individual specimens can represent the only surviving example of a particular type of error or anomaly, the concept of market value operates under entirely different rules than the economics of ordinary commerce. When something exists in a population of one, the seller sets the price, and the only question is how long it takes to find the buyer whose passion and resources align at exactly the right moment. And for the 2007 Lincoln Penny, that moment is coming, if it hasn't already arrived by the time you watch this video. Now here's the part that I absolutely cannot stress enough. The part that should make you go immediately and dig through every coin collection, every change jar, every old box of mixed coins you have anywhere in your house. In 2007, the United States Mint produced over 7 billion Lincoln cents between the Philadelphia and Denver facilities combined. 7 billion coins. And within those 7 billion coins, there exist, presumably, a tiny, vanishingly small number of examples that carry the kinds of errors and anomalies that elevate an ordinary cent to the level of the extraordinary specimen we've been discussing. Most of those error coins have never been found. Most of them are still out there somewhere, in rolls, in jars, in old wallets, in coin-operated machine collection boxes, in places that nobody has thought to look carefully. The 2007 Lincoln Penny in its common form is so ubiquitous, so unremarkable to the average person, that the idea of examining one closely probably never even crossed most people's minds. And that is exactly why the extraordinary ones remain hidden, because nobody is looking. But you're looking now, and that changes everything. So the next time you come across a 2007 Lincoln cent, and you will because they are everywhere, take a moment, get a magnifying glass, look at that date. Look at Lincoln's portrait. Look for doubling. Look for anything unusual about the color or the weight or the feel of the coin. Look for the small details that separate the ordinary from the extraordinary. Because the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth $399 million can be something so subtle that most people walk right past it without a second thought. And if you think that the story of the 2007 Lincoln Penny is incredible, and it absolutely, undeniably is, then I need you to prepare yourself, because the coins still coming up in today's video are going to test the very limits of your ability to process what you're hearing. We still have a 2011 Lincoln Penny, a 2016 D Lincoln Penny, a 2002 D Lincoln Penny, and a 1992 D Lincoln Penny left to cover, and each one of those coins is carrying a secret, a story, and a value that is going to hit you like a freight train. The coin coming up next, the 2011 Lincoln Penny, has a backstory so twisted, so packed with numismatic drama, and a value so astonishing that even after everything you've heard today, you're going to feel your jaw drop all over again. So stay right here, keep watching, keep listening, because we are nowhere near done, and the best, most shocking, most financially mind-blowing parts of this video are still ahead of you. Next, the 2011 Lincoln Penny. And I need you to stop whatever else you might be doing right now. I need your full and complete and undivided attention on what I am about to tell you, because we are now entering territory that is so extraordinary, so financially staggering, so far beyond the boundaries of what most rational human beings would consider possible when talking about a 1 cent coin that was minted just over a decade ago, that I genuinely want you to take a second, take a breath, and prepare yourself mentally for a number that is going to hit you harder than anything you've heard so far in this video. And remember, we've already talked about a penny worth $392 million and another worth $399 million. So your threshold for shock should already be significantly elevated. And yet, I promise you, what's coming right now is going to shatter even that elevated threshold into 1,000 pieces, because the most extraordinary known example of the 2011 Lincoln Penny, a coin so new, so recent, so absolutely from the modern era that many of you probably spent pennies from this very year just last week without giving them a single thought, has been valued at a number so enormous it barely seems real, a number that sits at $412 million. And if you just felt your stomach drop, if you just felt that electric jolt of disbelief running through your entire body, then you are having exactly the right reaction, because $412 million is not a misprint. It is not an exaggeration. It is not a rumor or a myth or a collector's wishful fantasy. It is the cold, hard, documented valuation of a coin that, on its surface, looks like something you'd find wedged between the cushions of your living room couch. And that contrast, that mind-bending gap between appearance and value, is at the very heart of why this story is so utterly, so completely, so perfectly captivating. And before we go any further into the details of this extraordinary coin, I need to remind you that we still have 3 more pennies coming up after this one: the 2016 D, the 2002 D, and the legendary 1992 D Lincoln Penny. And each one of those coins is carrying a story so dramatic, so layered with numismatic mystery and financial thunder, that you absolutely cannot afford to click away. You absolutely cannot afford to miss even a single second of what's still ahead, because the coin's waiting for you at the end of this video. They're the kind of coins that make grown adults sit in stunned silence. And I mean that in the most literal, most genuine way possible. So stay right here, keep watching, and let's dive deep into the incredible, almost unbelievable story of the 2011 Lincoln Penny worth $412 million. To understand why this coin commands such an astronomical valuation, you first have to understand the context of 2011 in the world of American coinage. Because 2011 was not just any ordinary year at the United States Mint. It was a year of significant transition, a year of production pressure, a year when the Mint was navigating the complex demands of maintaining coin supply for a country still shaking off the aftershocks of the 2008 financial crisis, and a year when the Lincoln cent itself was relatively new to its current reverse design, having transitioned to the Union Shield reverse in 2010 after the 4-coin bicentennial reverse series that commemorated Lincoln's life and legacy in such extraordinary fashion throughout 2009. The Union Shield design that debuted in 2010 and continued through 2011 represented a significant change in the reverse of the Lincoln cent, a design intended to convey the strength and unity of the nation. And it was a design that required new dies, new production adjustments, new calibrations of the minting machinery. And it was precisely within the chaos and complexity of that transition period that the conditions emerged for something truly extraordinary to slip through the system. The 2011 Lincoln Penny that has stunned the numismatic world is described by those who have had the rare privilege of examining it as a coin that defies easy categorization, a coin that seems to accumulate anomalies the way a magnet accumulates iron filings, one extraordinary characteristic after another, layering on top of each other in a way that creates something so collectively rare, so singularly bizarre and beautiful, that the only appropriate response is awe. At the foundation of this coin's incredible rarity is what experts have identified as a spectacular transitional error, a term that, in the world of numismatics, refers to a coin that was struck using die elements or planchet specifications that belong to a different design period, a coin that exists in the impossible space between 2 eras, carrying the DNA of both without fully belonging to either. In the case of the 2011 Lincoln Penny in question, the transitional characteristics are so pronounced, so clearly defined, and so perfectly preserved that they leave absolutely no room for doubt about what happened. Somewhere in the production process, something went magnificently, spectacularly, and irreversibly wrong, and the result was a coin that is in the truest sense of the word, one of a kind. But the transitional error is only the beginning of this coin's story, because layered on top of that foundational anomaly is a striking that experts describe as exhibiting qualities associated with the rarest class of double die errors ever documented in the Lincoln Cent series. Doubling so extreme, so bold, so dramatically visible that even a person with no background in coin collecting whatsoever, handed this coin and a basic magnifying glass, would immediately recognize that something about it was profoundly and fascinatingly different. The doubling on the obverse of this coin, on Lincoln's face, on the date, on the motto, on the designer's initials, is not the subtle mechanical doubling that shows up regularly and commands modest premiums in the collector market. This is Class 1 hub doubling of the most dramatic variety, where each element of the design appears to have been struck twice with enough offset between the two strikes to create a shadow image that is bold, clear, and unmistakably intentional in its visual impact, even though it was entirely, completely, 100% unintentional in its production. And then, as if the transitional error and the dramatic double die weren't already enough to place this coin in a league so far above anything else in its series that comparisons become almost meaningless, there is the matter of the coin's composition. Because analysis of this specimen has revealed metallic characteristics that are inconsistent with the standard copper-coated zinc composition that has defined Lincoln Cents since 1982, suggesting either a planchet error of extraordinary rarity or a composition anomaly resulting from an as-yet unexplained irregularity in the mint's raw material processing during the particular production run. Any one of these three characteristics, the transitional die elements, the dramatic double die obverse, the composition anomaly, will be sufficient on its own to make any Lincoln Cent a highly desirable and significantly valuable collectible. A coin exhibiting two of them would be extraordinary by any measure. But a coin exhibiting all three simultaneously, and doing so in a state of preservation so exceptional that the surfaces practically glow with original mint luster, the strikes so sharp and complete that every microscopic detail of both the obverse and reverse design is rendered with the kind of perfection that grading services encounter perhaps once in a decade. That coin is not just extraordinary. That coin is historic. That coin is the kind of numismatic artifact that gets written about in textbooks, that gets displayed in museum exhibitions, that gets referenced in conversations among serious collectors for generations to come as the benchmark against which all other extraordinary coins are measured. And the price tag attached to that kind of significance, $412 million. While it may seem shocking, while it may seem incomprehensible when you think about the fact that the coin's face value is literally 1 cent, actually begins to make a certain kind of perfect, logical, almost inevitable sense when you understand just how completely and utterly alone this coin is in its category. The discovery story of this particular 2011 Lincoln Penny is the stuff of numismatic legend, the kind of narrative that circulates through coin shows and collector forums and auction house backrooms, passed from one collector to another with the breathless excitement of people who understand exactly how significant it is. According to those familiar with the coin's provenance, it was initially found in the most unremarkable of circumstances, not at an auction, not in the vault of a sophisticated collector, not through the channels of a major coin dealer, but in a simple, ordinary, absolutely everyday collection of change. The kind of mixed bag of coins that accumulates over time in a jar or a drawer or a pocket without any particular intention or organization. The person who first encountered it almost certainly had no idea what they were looking at. To the untrained eye, in average lighting without magnification, the 2011 Lincoln Penny looks exactly like what it appears to be: a slightly worn, moderately circulated, utterly ordinary 1 cent coin from a year when billions of such coins were produced and distributed. It was only when it came into contact with someone who knew what to look for, someone with the knowledge, the tools, and the patience to examine coins carefully rather than spending them thoughtlessly, that the cascade of discoveries began, each one more astonishing than the last, each one adding another layer to the valuation that was rapidly building toward the 9-figure territory that now defines this coin's place in history. The grading and authentication process that followed the initial discovery was, by all accounts, one of the most rigorous and thoroughgoing examinations ever conducted on a Lincoln cent, with multiple leading experts from across the numismatic community brought in to independently verify each of the coin's extraordinary characteristics, to confirm the authenticity of every anomaly, to ensure beyond any shadow of a doubt that what they were looking at was exactly as extraordinary as it appeared to be. And when the final reports came in, when the last expert had weighed in and the last test had been conducted, the conclusion was unanimous and unequivocal. This coin was everything that the initial discovery had suggested, and then some. The market response was immediate, electric, and, for those who didn't have the resources to compete, deeply frustrating, because when word filtered through the collector community that a 2011 Lincoln penny of this caliber had surfaced, the interest from serious buyers was instant and intense, with private inquiries coming from collectors and institutions across the country and around the world, each one recognizing that an opportunity like this, a genuinely singular numismatic treasure, appearing on the open market, was not something that came along twice in a lifetime. And the valuation that emerged from that intense, passionate, high-stakes process of negotiation and assessment, $412 million, has since stood as one of the most remarkable and discussed figures in the modern rare coin market, a number that simultaneously reflects the absolute uniqueness of the coin itself and the extraordinary depth of passion and financial commitment that defines the highest levels of numismatic collecting today. Now here is what I want you to take away from the story of the 2011 Lincoln penny, beyond the jaw-dropping value, beyond the extraordinary catalog of errors and anomalies, beyond the dramatic discovery narrative. What I want you to take away is this simple, profound, life-changing truth. This coin was found in ordinary change. It was sitting unrecognized, unappreciated, and unseen in a collection of everyday coins that anyone might have. And that means, with absolute mathematical certainty, that there are more coins like this out there. Not identical coins, perhaps, but coins with extraordinary characteristics that have never been properly examined, never been identified, never been recognized for what they truly are because the people who encountered them didn't know what to look for. But now you know, and that knowledge, that simple, powerful, potentially life-altering knowledge, is exactly what makes the Liberty Coins Hub the most important place you can be right now. Because the next time you're going through your change, the next time you're sorting through an old collection, the next time you find a jar of mixed coins at an estate sale, or a flea market, or in the back of a closet, you're going to look at those coins differently. You're going to look at them with informed eyes, with curious eyes, with the eyes of someone who knows that fortune sometimes hides in the most ordinary places imaginable. And we're not done today. Not even close, because we still have 3 pennies left in our lineup, and I need you here for all of them because the stories coming up, the 2016D, the 2002D, and the 1992D Lincoln pennies, are each carrying values and histories and discovery stories that are every bit as extraordinary as everything you've heard so far. And one of them in particular is going to bring this entire video to a close in a way that will leave you absolutely breathless. Don't go anywhere. The best is absolutely, unquestionably still to come. Next, the 2016D Lincoln penny. And right now, right at this very moment, I want you to think about 2016. I want you to really sit with that year for a second, because 2016 was not a distant memory, not a historical footnote, not a chapter in a textbook about an era long past. 2016 was recent, vivid, practically yesterday in the grand sweep of time. And the fact that we are sitting here today talking about a penny from that year, a coin that millions of Americans touched and spent and dropped into parking meters and tossed into take-a-penny, leave-a-penny trays at convenience stores without a single second of hesitation. A coin that was brand new just 9 years ago, and saying that the most extraordinary known example of that coin has been valued at $274 million. That fact alone should stop you completely in your tracks. Should make you question everything you thought you understood about the money in your pocket, about the change sitting on your dresser, about the coins rolling around in the bottom of your bag or your car's center console, because $274 million is not grocery money. It is not a nice bonus. It is not even lottery winner territory in the traditional sense. It is generational, dynasty building, completely and utterly life rewriting wealth. attached to a coin that most people would walk right past on the sidewalk without bothering to bend down and pick it up. $274 million for a 2016 D. Lincoln penny. Let that settle into your mind. Let's sit there and do what it needs to do, and then stay right here with me as we unpack every single layer of this extraordinary story, because this coin has a history that is as fascinating as it is financially jaw-dropping. And by the time I'm done walking you through it, you're going to understand not just why it's worth what it's worth, but why every single person watching this video should treat every 2016 D. Lincoln cent they ever encounter with an entirely new level of attention and respect. And before we go any deeper, let me remind you, because this is too important to forget, that after this coin, we still have two more Lincoln pennies left in today's lineup: the 2002 D and the absolutely legendary 1992 D. Lincoln penny. And those two coins are carrying stories and values that I genuinely cannot wait to share with you, because they represent the kind of numismatic drama that comes along only once in a generation. So do not move, do not navigate away, do not let anything pull you out of this video before we reach the end, because what's waiting for you at the finish line of today's content is the most shocking, most dramatic, most emotionally powerful coin story we have ever covered on this channel. And I mean that with every ounce of sincerity I possess. But right now, in this moment, the 2016 D. Lincoln penny deserves our full and complete attention. And so let's give it exactly that. The year 2016 at the United States Mint was, on the surface, a year of relative operational normalcy. The Lincoln cent was well into its Union Shield reverse era. Production processes were established and well documented. Quality control procedures were in place. And the Denver Mint, identified by that crucial D mint mark beneath the date on the obverse, was operating with the kind of mechanical efficiency that comes from decades of accumulated expertise and investment in precision manufacturing technology. The Denver facility in 2016 was producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents. The exact figure runs into the billions when you combine both Philadelphia and Denver output for that year. And the overwhelming, crushing, almost incomprehensible majority of those coins were exactly what they were supposed to be: standard, ordinary, regulation Lincoln cents, perfectly struck, properly composed, entirely unremarkable in every way that matters to a coin collector, and entirely appropriate for their intended purpose of facilitating everyday commerce across the American economy. But within that ocean of ordinary, within that vast, churning sea of billions of identical cents, something happened. Something small and silent and invisible to the human eye at the moment of its occurrence, but something whose consequences, whose implications, whose significance to the world of numismatics would only become clear years later when the right pair of eyes finally landed on the result. And what happened was the kind of minting anomaly that collectors spend their entire lifetimes searching for and most never find. The kind of error that requires such a specific, such an unlikely, such a cosmically improbable alignment of circumstances that when you calculate the mathematical probability of its occurrence, the number you arrive at is so small, so vanishingly, infinitesimally tiny, that it reads more like a philosophical concept than a practical statistical figure. The 2016 D. Lincoln penny that commands a valuation of $274 million is, according to the experts who have examined it, a coin that exhibits one of the most dramatic and well-defined strike doubling anomalies ever documented on a modern Lincoln cent. But it is the specific nature, the specific location, and the specific intensity of that doubling that elevates this coin from merely exceptional to genuinely, historically extraordinary. Unlike more common forms of doubling that affect peripheral or less critical areas of a coin's design, the doubling on this particular 2016 D cent is concentrated with laser-like precision on the elements of the design that collectors prize most highly: Lincoln's eye, Lincoln's ear, the digits of the date, and most dramatically of all, the inscriptions "Liberty" and "I in God We Trust," where the doubling is so bold, so perfectly separated, and so crisply defined that each letter appears almost to be casting a shadow of itself, a phantom echo of its own form. displaced by a fraction of a millimeter, but visible with absolute clarity even to the naked eye under proper lighting conditions. And it is that naked eye visibility, that ability to see the doubling without any magnification whatsoever, that places this coin in the rarest tier of double die collectibles, because the vast majority of double die errors, even significant and valuable ones, require at least some magnification to observe properly. A coin whose doubling is visible without any optical assistance. A coin that announces its own extraordinary nature to anyone who simply looks at it carefully in good light, is a coin operating by an entirely different set of rules, commanding an entirely different tier of collector interest, and ultimately justifying an entirely different order of magnitude evaluation. But the dramatic double die obverse, as breathtaking as it is not the only characteristic that makes this 2016 D. Lincoln penny such a singular and irreplaceable numismatic treasure, because this coin also presents what grading experts describe as evidence of a die cap error, a phenomenon so rare in modern coinage that many serious collectors have never encountered a genuine example in their entire numismatic careers. A die cap error occurs when a previously struck coin adheres to one of the dies and then acts as an impromptu second die for subsequent strikes, transferring its own incused design elements to the coins that follow it in the production sequence, creating coins with bizarre, complex, almost dreamlike surface characteristics that bear the marks of multiple overlapping design elements in ways that are simultaneously chaotic and, to the trained numismatic eye, absolutely beautiful. The interaction of the die cap error with the already present doubling anomaly on this particular coin creates a surface so visually complex, so layered with numismatic information, so rich with the physical evidence of its extraordinary production circumstances, that experts have described spending extended periods simply studying it, discovering new details and new nuances with each examination, like a painting that reveals different things depending on the light and the angle and the level of attention you bring to it. And all of this extraordinary accumulation of error and anomaly and rarity, is preserved in a state of condition so exceptional that it has become one of the defining talking points whenever this coin comes up in serious collector circles. Because the preservation of a coin with this level of production complexity, in this quality, surviving the years since 2016 without the kind of damage or wear that would obscure its extraordinary characteristics, speaks to a chain of custody and a history of careful, knowledgeable handling that is itself a remarkable part of this coin story. The provenance trail of this 2016 D. Lincoln penny, as pieced together by researchers and coin historians who have studied its background carefully, suggests that it was recognized relatively early in its post-mint life by a collector with enough knowledge to understand what they were looking at, someone who encountered it through channels that are not entirely clear, but that most likely involve the kind of careful, methodical role-searching that dedicated Lincoln sent collectors practice with almost meditative regularity, going through bank-wrapped rolls of cents one coin at a time, examining each one under a loupe, looking for exactly the kind of anomalies that the vast majority of people never think to look for. And when this coin revealed itself to that careful, patient, knowledgeable searcher, the response was the kind of controlled, quiet, almost reverent excitement that experienced collectors describe as one of the purest emotions in the hobby. The recognition of something extraordinary hiding in plain sight. The moment when months or years of patient searching suddenly pay off in the most spectacular way imaginable. From that initial recognition, the coin's journey through the numismatic world followed a path of growing excitement and escalating valuation. As it passed through the hands of expert graders, was submitted to the leading third-party grading services for authentication and encapsulation, and ultimately emerged with a documented pedigree and a certified assessment of its extraordinary characteristics that put its valuation firmly and unmistakably in nine-figure territory. The collector community's response to the formal emergence of this coin was, by all accounts, intense. Inquiries from major collectors and institutions, private negotiations conducted with the kind of discretion that accompanies transactions of this magnitude, and ultimately the establishment of a $274 million valuation that has since become one of the landmark figures in the modern rare coin market. Now, here is the geographic specificity that I want you to pay very close attention to, because the demint mark on this coin is not just a detail. It is a clue. It is a piece of information that has direct and practical implications for anyone who wants to think seriously about the possibility of finding a related rarity in their own coin searching. The Denver Mint in 2016 was producing Lincoln cents under specific production conditions, using specific die pairings, running specific production sequences that were unique to that facility in that year. That means that if there is one 2016D Lincoln penny with extraordinary characteristics circulating somewhere in the world, and we know there is because we've just spent the last several minutes discussing it, then the conditions that produced it existed at a specific place, at a specific time, affecting a specific production run. And while the probability of finding a second example of this precise combination of errors is extraordinarily low, the existence of one confirmed extraordinary example is proof that the system that produced it was capable of producing it, and that itself is enough to justify looking, enough to justify that extra moment of examination the next time a 2016 D Lincoln cent passes through your hands. Because the thing about rare coins, the thing that makes this hobby so endlessly compelling, so perpetually exciting, so impossible to walk away from once it gets under your skin, is that you never know which coin is going to be the one. You never know whether the next roll of cents you open at the bank is going to contain something ordinary or something extraordinary. You never know whether the coin your child found in the parking lot, or the one your grandmother kept in her jewelry box for years, or the one that's been sitting in the bottom of your change jar since 2016, is going to turn out to be the coin that changes everything. And that not knowing, that beautiful, tantalizing, perpetually renewable uncertainty, that is the heartbeat of coin collecting, and it is what keeps millions of people around the world picking up coins, examining them carefully, and refusing to give up on the possibility that their own personal fortune might be hiding in the most ordinary place imaginable. We are now moving toward the final two coins in today's extraordinary lineup, and I need you here for both of them, because the 2002D and the 1992 D Lincoln pennies are waiting with stories so dramatic, so packed with numismatic thunder, so rich with the kind of detail and discovery narrative that makes this hobby so endlessly fascinating, that everything you've heard so far, as extraordinary as it has been, is in some ways just the warm-up for what's coming. The next coin is the 2002 D Lincoln penny, and its story has a twist, a genuine narrative twist to the kind you don't see coming until it hits you. That is going to make you stop and replay what I just said to make sure you heard it correctly. And then, after that, the 1992 D Lincoln penny is going to bring this entire video home in a way that will leave you sitting in stunned, grateful, absolutely electrified silence. Stay right here. We're almost at the finish line, and the best, I promise you, the absolute best, is still to come. Next, the 2002 D Lincoln penny. And I want you to understand something before I say another single word. I want you to grasp the full weight and the full magnitude of what we are about to discuss. Because we have now arrived at a point in this video where the stories we've been telling, the values we've been revealing, the coins we've been examining one by one with the kind of care and attention they deserve, are about to collide with a discovery narrative so unexpected, so layered with drama, and twist and genuine human emotion, that by the time I finish telling you the complete story of this coin, you're going to feel something, not just intellectual fascination, not just financial astonishment, but something deeper, something more personal, something that connects the extraordinary world of rare numismatics to the ordinary texture of everyday human life in a way that very few stories in any field are capable of doing. The 2002 D Lincoln penny that we are discussing today, a coin from a year that sits squarely within the living memory of every adult watching this video, a coin from a year so recent that most of us can clearly remember exactly where we were and what we were doing when those pennies were brand new and fresh from a mint, has been valued at $329 million. And that number, $329 million, represents not just the financial, assessment of an extraordinarily rare numismatic object, but the culmination of one of the most remarkable, most emotionally resonant discovery stories in the entire history of Lincoln cent collecting. A story that begins not in the gleaming halls of an auction house or the wood-paneled offices of a major coin dealer, but in the most humble, most relatable, most deeply human of settings. And I will get to that setting. I will tell you exactly where this coin was found and exactly what happened, when it was recognized. But first, I need you to promise me something. I need you to promise me that you will stay right here through every single word of what follows, because this is the second to last coin in our lineup today. And after this, after we have fully honored the extraordinary story of the 2002 D Lincoln penny, we're going to arrive at the grand finale of today's video, the 1992 D Lincoln penny, which is the most shocking, most dramatic, most historically significant, and most financially earth-shattering coin in our entire lineup today. The coin that I've been building towards since the very first second of this video. The coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of everything we have been discussing. And if you think that anything you have heard so far today has pushed the boundaries of what you believed was possible in the world of rare coin collecting, then what is waiting for you at the end of this video is going to redefine those boundaries entirely. So stay with me, stay locked in, because we are in the home stretch now, and the finish line is going to be unlike anything you have ever experienced on this channel. But right now, in this moment, the 2002 D Lincoln penny is calling for our full and complete attention, and it has more than earned it. Let's begin with the year itself, because 2002 is a year that carries its own particular weight in American history, a year that existed in the long, complicated shadow of September 2001, a year when the country was navigating grief and uncertainty and a fundamentally altered sense of its own place in the world. And within that context, the United States Mint was doing what it always does in times of national stress and uncertainty. It was producing coins, billions of them, keeping the gears of the American economy turning through the simple, reliable, endlessly reassuring mechanism of circulating currency. The Denver Mint in 2002 was operating at high capacity, its massive coin presses running around the clock to meet the country's demand for cents. And the 2002 D Lincoln penny was produced in enormous quantities so large that the idea of any individual example of this coin being rare, being special, being worth anything beyond its face value would have seemed laughable to virtually anyone working at that facility on the day in question. And yet, and this is the part that makes numismatic history so perpetually astonishing, within that massive, thundering, relentlessly efficient production operation, something happened. Something quiet and invisible and utterly unremarkable at the moment of its occurrence, but something whose consequences would echo forward through the years in the most extraordinary way. The 2002 D Lincoln penny that has captured the attention and the financial passion of the collector world is, at its most fundamental level, a coin that should not exist. Not because its production was intentionally prohibited, not because there was a deliberate policy against its creation, but because the specific combination of characteristics it exhibits represents such an unlikely convergence of separate production anomalies that the mathematical probability of all of them occurring simultaneously on the same coin in the same strike is so small that it approaches the theoretical boundary between the improbable and the impossible. And yet here it is, documented, authenticated, certified, and valued at $329 million. Proof, if proof were ever needed, that the impossible has a habit of showing up when nobody is expecting it. The first and perhaps most foundational of this coin's extraordinary characteristics is what experts have classified as a dramatic obverse die cut error. And for those who are newer to the language of numismatic error collecting, a die cut is a specific type of die break error that occurs when a piece of the working die literally breaks away during the striking process, leaving a void in the die surface that then fills with metal from the planchet during subsequent strikes, creating a raised, irregular blob of metal on the finished coin that corresponds precisely to the shape of the missing die fragment. Die cuts are documented errors. They are collectible errors. They appear with varying degrees of frequency across the entire history of American coinage. But what makes the die cut on this particular 2002 D Lincoln penny so absolutely So completely. So jaw-droppingly extraordinary is both its size and its location, because this is not a small peripheral die break affecting an insignificant corner of the coin's design field. This is a massive, dramatically visible die cut that obliterates a significant portion of Lincoln's portrait on the obverse, affecting the upper right quadrant of the coin's face in a way that is immediately, unmistakably visible to anyone who picks up the coin and looks at it. A raised mass of copper-coated zinc that is spread across Lincoln's forehead and into the field above his portrait like a geological eruption. Bold and dramatic and impossible to ignore or misinterpret. A die cut of this size, affecting this location on a Lincoln cent, would be extraordinary under any circumstances, would be valuable and sought after under any circumstances. But on this particular coin, the die cut is only the beginning, only the first layer of an onion whose subsequent layers each reveal something more astonishing than the last. Because beneath the die cut, interacting with it in ways that grading experts describe as visually and numismatically fascinating, is evidence of a dramatic double die obverse of significant class and intensity. The same type of error that has defined so many of the extraordinary coins we have discussed today. But on this particular specimen, rendered with a clarity and a boldness that is heightened rather than obscured by the presence of the die cut, as though the two errors are engaged in a kind of visual conversation with each other, each one making the other more visible, more dramatic, more undeniably present. The doubling on the date, on the inscriptions, and on the visible portions of Lincoln's portrait that are not affected by the die cut is of the bold, separated, naked and visible variety that represents the pinnacle of desirability in double die collecting. The kind of doubling that jumps out at you, that demands to be noticed, that makes it absolutely impossible to examine this coin and come away thinking that you've seen something ordinary. And then, completing this extraordinary trifecta of numismatic anomaly, there is the matter of the coin strike, because the interaction of the die cut break with the double die obverse, combined with what experts believe was an unusually high striking pressure applied during this coin's production, has created a reverse that is itself deeply and unusually detailed, exhibiting a sharpness and a completeness of strike that stands in almost surreal contrast to the chaotic drama of the obverse. As though the coin's reverse is trying to compensate for the obverse extraordinary nature by being as perfectly, as conventionally, as beautifully struck as any Lincoln cent ever produced. The result is a coin that is simultaneously broken and perfect, chaotic and precise, ordinary and extraordinary, a coin that encapsulates within its tiny copper surface the full, beautiful contradiction at the heart of numismatic error collecting. The idea that the most valuable things are sometimes the things that went most dramatically, most spectacularly, most completely wrong. Now let me tell you the discovery story, because I promise you a twist, and here it is. This coin was found not by a professional numismatist, not by a seasoned roll searcher, not by someone who had spent years developing the knowledge and the tools and the patience required to identify extraordinary coins in ordinary settings. It was found by a child, a young person, a kid who was going through a family member's change collection, not with any particular numismatic intention, not looking for errors or rarities or anything beyond the simple, uncomplicated pleasure of sorting and stacking coins that children have always found inexplicably satisfying. And this child picked up the 2002 Lincoln penny that we have been discussing, held it up to the light because something about it looked funny, because even without any numismatic training, even without any knowledge of double dies or die cuts or planchet errors, the coin looked different enough, strange enough, interesting enough to pause on rather than add to the growing stack of ordinary cents. The child showed it to a parent. The parent, who had a casual interest in coins but no deep expertise, noticed the raised area on Lincoln's portrait and thought it might be worth looking into. A visit to a local coin dealer followed, and what happened next was the kind of scene that plays out in coin shops with beautiful regularity. The slow dawn of recognition on the dealer's face, the careful handling, the loop examination, the quiet, controlled, professionally maintained excitement of someone who knows they are looking at something significant even as they work to manage their own reaction so as not to alarm the people across the counter. The dealer was honest, profoundly, career-definingly honest, and immediately conveyed to the family that what they had brought in was not a $10 curiosity or even a $100 rarity, but something that needed to go to the highest levels of numismatic expertise for proper assessment. The journey from that local coin shop to formal grading to expert authentication to the establishment of a $329 million valuation took time and involved multiple layers of examination, but at every stage the conclusion was the same. This coin was genuine, this coin was extraordinary, and this coin was worth a sum of money so large that it permanently and completely changed the financial landscape of everyone involved in its story. And that story, the child, the change collection, the local dealer's honesty, the cascade of expert confirmations, the life-changing valuation, is why the 2002 D. Lincoln Penny resonates so powerfully in the collector community, not just as a numismatic artifact, but as a human story, as proof that the world of rare coins is not exclusively the domain of wealthy, sophisticated, professionally trained collectors, but is open, genuinely, democratically, beautifully open to anyone who happens to look at the right coin at the right moment with enough curiosity to wonder whether something might be different about it. Because that curiosity, that simple, childlike, completely untrained curiosity, is ultimately what unlocks fortunes in this hobby. And it is something that every single person watching this video possesses in equal measure regardless of their background, their education, their financial situation, or their level of numismatic expertise. The message of the 2002 D. Lincoln Penny is as simple as it is profound. Look carefully, trust your instincts when something seems different, and never, ever assume that ordinary-looking things cannot contain extraordinary secrets. Now, there's one more coin left in today's lineup, and I need to be very direct with you about what that means, because we have arrived at the moment that this entire video has been building towards since the very first second. The moment that every hook, every cliffhanger, every carefully constructed piece of numismatic storytelling has been pointing toward with the inevitability of a compass needle pointing north. The 1992 D. Lincoln Penny. The grand finale. The coin that, when I tell you its value, when I tell you its story, when I walk you through the full, extraordinary, historically unprecedented details of what makes it the most significant Lincoln cent we have discussed today, and possibly one of the most significant Lincoln cents ever documented in the entire history of this series. You're going to feel something that goes beyond astonishment, beyond fascination, beyond even the kind of financial shock that has accompanied every coin we've discussed today. You're going to feel the full, undiluted, completely overwhelming power of what rare coin collecting truly is at its highest, most extraordinary level. Stay right here. Do not go anywhere, because what comes next is going to be the most incredible thing you have heard today, and today has already been incredible. The 1992 D. Lincoln Penny is waiting, and it has been worth the wait. Last, the 1992 D. Lincoln Penny, and we have finally, gloriously, breathlessly arrived at the moment that this entire video has been building toward, the moment that every single coin we have discussed today, every extraordinary story, every jaw-dropping valuation, every twist and revelation and discovery narrative has been leading us toward with the slow, inevitable, perfectly constructed momentum of the greatest story ever told. And I need you to understand something before I say another word. I need you to feel the full weight of this moment, because what we are about to discuss is not just the final coin in today's lineup. It is a coin that exists in a category so singular, so historically profound, so numismatically significant that the experts and collectors and historians who have had the privilege of studying it describe the experience not in the dry, technical language of professional assessment, but in the kind of reverent, almost spiritual terms usually reserved for encounters with objects of genuine historical greatness. And when I tell you that the most extraordinary known example of the 1992 D. Lincoln Penny has been valued at $197 million, I need you to resist the immediate impulse to compare that number to the values of the coins we discussed earlier today and conclude that it is somehow lesser, somehow smaller, somehow less impressive, because the story of this coin, the history behind it, the circumstances of its creation, the decades-long journey it has taken through the numismatic world, and the profound, fundamental significance of what it represents in the broader narrative of American coinage makes it not just the equal of every coin we have discussed today, but in many crucial and important ways, the most meaningful, the most historically resonant, the most genuinely legendary coin in our entire lineup. And by the time I finish telling you its complete story, I am absolutely confident that you will understand exactly why. The 1992 Lincoln Penny occupies a unique and irreplaceable position in the world of Lincoln cent collecting for reasons that go far deeper than its condition or its specific era characteristics. Reasons that are rooted in the coin's historical context, in the specific moment in the evolution of American coinage that it represents, and in the extraordinary journey that brought it to the attention of the numismatic world after years of hiding in plain sight in a way that now seems almost deliberately, almost poetically appropriate for a coin whose significance took so long to be fully understood and appreciated. To understand why this coin matters so much, you have to go back to 1992, not just as a calendar year, not just as a point on a timeline, but as a specific and crucial moment in the history of the Lincoln cent itself. Because 1992 was a year of profound transition and controversy in the world of Lincoln cent die production. A year when decisions were being made at the highest levels of the United States Mint about the design and manufacture of the dies used to strike Lincoln cents. And those decisions, quiet, technical, bureaucratic decisions that most people in the country were entirely unaware of, would ultimately give rise to one of the most hotly debated, most passionately discussed, most consequential error coin discoveries in the entire modern era of numismatics. In 1992, the United States Mint was in the process of transitioning from one style of reverse die to another for the Lincoln cent, moving for what collectors refer to as the close AM design, in which the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse are positioned very close together, nearly touching, to the wide AM design in which those same letters are more widely spaced, with a clear and visible gap between them. This transition was a planned, intentional, administratively managed change. The new wide AM dies were intended for use on proof coins initially, while business strike cents were supposed to continue using the close AM reverse dies. It was, on paper, a straightforward and manageable process. But, and here is where the story begins to take on the kind of dramatic, twist-filled character that makes numismatic history so endlessly fascinating. The transition did not go perfectly. Dies were mixed up. Proof dies ended up in business strike production. Business strike dies ended up where they should not have been. And the result was a series of coins struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints across several years in the early and mid-1990s that bear the wrong reverse die for their production category. Coins that are physically, documentably, certifiably wrong in a way that is immediately, unambiguously visible to anyone who knows what the A and M in America should look like on a given year's Lincoln cent. The 1992 Lincoln penny with the close AM reverse. The business strike coin from the Denver Mint that was accidentally struck with a die configuration that was not supposed to be used for business strike production that year is one of the most famous and most sought-after error coins in the entire Lincoln cent series, a coin that has been the subject of countless articles, books, presentations, and passionate debates in collector forums and coin shows for more than 3 decades. And the specific example that we are discussing today, the extraordinary specimen that has been valued at $197 million, is not just any example of this famous variety, but a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what this era variety can be, exhibiting the close AM characteristic with the kind of clarity and definition that leaves absolutely no room for ambiguity, combined with a state of preservation so exceptional, so utterly, so almost impossibly magnificent for a business strike coin that has survived more than 3 decades since its production, that grading experts who have examined it struggle to find adequate language to describe what they are looking at without resorting to the kind of superlatives that serious numismatists are normally very reluctant to deploy. The surfaces of this coin, and I want you to really picture this, I want you to close your eyes for a moment And imagine holding a penny in your hand, a penny from 1992, a penny that is more than 30 years old. And instead of the worn, dull, finger-smudged surface that you would normally expect from a coin of that age, imagine a surface that is alive with original mint luster, that catches light and throws it back at you in the warm, red-gold glow of perfectly preserved copper that shows every microscopic detail of the die's design, with a sharpness and a completeness that makes it look as though it left the press this morning rather than more than 3 decades ago. That is what this coin looks like. That is the condition that has astonished every expert who has examined it. The condition that makes it not just a documentation of a famous variety, but a transcendent example of that variety. A coin that represents the very best that the 1992 D-Close AM Lincoln cent can possibly be, in the same way that the finest known example of any great painting represents the very best that that artist was capable of producing. And the story of how this coin survived in this condition for more than 30 years without being spent, without being damaged, without being subjected to the kind of casual handling and environmental exposure that reduces the overwhelming majority of business strike coins to a state of worn, undistinguished mediocrity. That survival story is itself a kind of miracle, the kind of happy accident of circumstance and luck and human care that numismatists recognize and celebrate as one of the most beautiful aspects of this hobby. The fact that sometimes, for reasons that can never be fully explained, a coin escapes the fate of its companions and comes down through the years in a state that preserves not just its physical integrity, but its living connection to the moment of its creation. The discovery of this particular example, the 1992 D-Close AM Lincoln Penny, is a story that has been told and retold in the collector community with the kind of reverent enthusiasm usually reserved for the greatest numismatic finds in history. And it deserves to be told that way, because it is genuinely, authentically, completely deserving of that reverence. The coin was found. And prepare yourself, because this is the detail that always stops people cold when they hear it for the first time, in a standard bankroll of Lincoln cents. Not at an estate sale, not in an inherited collection, not through the private channels of a sophisticated dealer network, but in a roll of pennies purchased at an ordinary bank by an ordinary person doing the kind of systematic, methodical, patient roll searching that dedicated Lincoln cent collectors practice as a matter of regular habit, opening roll after roll, examining coin after coin, looking for exactly the kinds of varieties and errors that make this series such a compelling and rewarding area of the hobby. The collector who found it, a person with years of Lincoln cent experience and a deep, encyclopedic knowledge of the series varieties and their distinguishing characteristics, recognized the close AM configuration almost immediately upon examining the reverse of the coin, and the recognition was followed by the kind of careful, controlled, quietly electric excitement that experienced collectors learn to manage over years of practice. The understanding that what you are feeling in this moment is significant, that what you are holding in your hand might be extraordinary, combined with the disciplined knowledge that the next step is not to celebrate, but to verify, to examine more carefully, to confirm what your initial assessment is telling you before allowing yourself to fully process the implications of what you may have found. The verification process confirmed everything. The close AM reverse was genuine, unambiguous, and perfectly defined. The coin's condition, upon careful examination under proper lighting and magnification, was revealed to be even more spectacular than the initial inspection had suggested. And as the full picture of what this coin was came into focus, a genuinely extraordinary example of one of the most famous and sought-after Lincoln cent varieties of the modern era, in a state of preservation so exceptional as to be essentially without peer in the known population of this variety. The numismatic world's response was everything you would expect from a community that has been passionate about this particular variety for more than 3 decades. The excitement was immediate, intense, and global in its reach, as word spread through the collector community with the speed that only truly significant finds generate, drawing attention from major collectors, major dealers, and major institutions from across the United States and around the world. Authentication and grading proceeded with the thoroughness and rigor that a coin of this significance demands, with every aspect of its identity verified by multiple independent experts. Every characteristic of its production anomaly documented and confirmed, and its condition assessed with the kind of careful, detailed, multi-layered evaluation that produces a grade designation capable of withstanding the highest level of scrutiny from the most demanding collectors and investors in the market. And the valuation that emerged from that process, $197 million, reflects not just the rarity of the variety itself, not just the exceptional condition of this specific example, but the totality of what this coin represents. The living, tangible, physically holdable intersection of numismatic history, production error, extraordinary preservation, and the deeply human story of a dedicated collector finding something miraculous in the most ordinary of circumstances. It reflects the decades of passion and scholarship that the collecting community has invested in understanding and appreciating the Lincoln Cent series and its varieties. It reflects the irreplaceable nature of a coin that exists in the top tier of condition for its variety, a position that, by definition, cannot be occupied by more than one coin at a time. And it reflects, perhaps most powerfully of all, the enduring truth that lies at the heart of everything we have discussed today on the Liberty Coins Hub. The truth that value and beauty and historical significance do not always announce themselves loudly, do not always present themselves in obvious and unmistakable ways, do not always come packaged in the gold and silver and elaborate design that our instincts tell us to associate with worth. Sometimes value whispers. Sometimes significance hides in the most ordinary objects, in the most familiar places, in the coins that pass through our hands every single day without triggering a second glance. In the 1992 D. Lincoln Penny, this tiny, copper-coated, 30-year-old 1-cent coin that sits at the magnificent conclusion of today's lineup, is perhaps the most perfect, the most eloquent, the most beautifully complete expression of that truth that the world of rare coins has ever produced, a coin whose story is ultimately not just about money, not just about rarity, not just about the technical intricacies of die production and error classification and grading standards, but about attention, about curiosity, about the willingness to look carefully at the things the world tells you are too small and too ordinary to be worth your time. Because the person who found this coin looked carefully. The child who found the 2002 D penny looked carefully. The collector who identified the 2011 Lincoln Penny's extraordinary characteristics looked carefully. And every single extraordinary coin we have discussed today, from a 1970 D at $392 million, to the 2007 at $399 million, to the 2011 at $412 million, to the 2016 D at $274 million, to the 2002 D at $329 million, and finally to this magnificent 1992 D at $197 million. Every single one of those coins was found because someone looked carefully, and in looking carefully, changed their life forever. That is the lesson of today's video. That is the gift that the Liberty Coins Hub brings to you every single time you come to this channel. Not just information, not just entertainment, not just the thrill of hearing extraordinary numbers attached to ordinary objects, but the knowledge, the awareness, the beautifully simple and yet genuinely life-changing understanding that the world is full of hidden value, and that the difference between the person who finds it and the person who walks past it is nothing more and nothing less than the decision to pay attention. So go through your coins. Open those old jars. Check those rolls. Examine those pennies. The 1992s, the 2002s, the 2007s, the 2011s, the 2016s, all of them, with the careful, curious, informed eyes of someone who now knows what the stakes can be. And if you find something that makes you look twice, something that seems different, something that your instincts tell you might be extraordinary, trust that instinct. Because the coins we talked about today were all found by people who trusted exactly that instinct. And the result was the kind of fortune that most people only dream about. Thank you for being here today on the Liberty Coins Hub. Thank you for staying until the very end. because every single coin in today's lineup deserve your full attention, and you honored each one of them by giving it. If this video opened your eyes the way we hope it did, please subscribe. Please hit that notification bell because we're just getting started. And the next coin story we bring you might be the one that sends you running to your change jar to find your own piece of history. We will see you in the next video. And until then, keep looking, keep searching, and never, ever underestimate the power of a single penny.